Hello friends, welcome to Happy and Free Yoga with Maureen. And today we are in the kitchen again cooking. The weather has turned a little bit cooler and that is making me interested in making a soup. So I am sharing with you today a soup that I really enjoy. Curried, Kabocha, and butternut squash soup. And I'll be combining both squashes. So if you've been to the market lately, you might have seen these Kabocha pumpkins, and they are very hard and quite delicious once cooked. And then the other squash that I'll be using is the butternut squash. And both of them are quite hard, which makes them a challenge to cut. So if you are finding that to be the case for you and your knives, then go ahead and pop these in the microwave for like 5 minutes or so, and it just softens them a little bit before you cut them. The other alternative is to let somebody else do the cutting for you. So Trader Joe's sells the butternut squash all chopped up. This might have been Whole Foods, I'm not really sure. Anyways, all chopped up, 2 pounds. And ready to go. So for our soup today, that is going to be our base. We're going to use 6 cups of combined butternut squash and kabocha pumpkin. And what you might notice here is that some of my kabocha pumpkin's a little bit frozen because I had actually some extra from the time I made it before, and I just tossed it in the freezer and now pulled it out because it keeps very well in the freezer once chopped. Okay, so 6 cups of the squash, and then we're going to use 3/4 cup of carrot. The carrot adds just a little bit of sweetness to it. And then 1.5 cups of chopped yellow or white onion. You want a stronger onion, not the sweet onion or the red onion. You want a nice strong onion. Once it's roasted, it'll mellow those flavors out really nicely. And then we will add in 3 to 5 cloves of garlic and about 1.5 inches of ginger, minced. And what I do with my ginger and garlic is when I get them from the market, I get the organic version, wash it good, this is on the ginger, and chop it up, slice it, and put it in the freezer. So it's ready to use when I am ready to use it. Okay? That is my oven saying it's preheated because we'll be roasting our vegetables here shortly. So one of the things about this squash soup that makes it really special is the curry seasonings. And what I discovered is it's really important to roast your seasonings. And you know that I don't use oil. So a lot of people might saute their curry paste in the fry pan, but I am going to actually toss it in with these vegetables and then oven roast the seasonings and the vegetables together, which really brings up the flavor. Anytime you roast things, the spices and the vegetables all have their flavors enhanced by that. Okay, so let's add our spices. That'll be next. And here you can see I've mixed together my spices already. And I am going to put those in there. Okay, let's go over those spices that I had in that spice mix. So we'll start off with a 1/4 teaspoon, just a small amount of cloves. Cloves are very strong, so you don't need a whole lot of that. And then we'll do a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg and a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. Okay, then we'll do a whole teaspoon of the cinnamon and a whole teaspoon of garam masala. If you haven't seen that in your market, you can also go to an Indian grocery store. That'll work really well. And then the most important spice of all is this curry seasoning. It's by Spice Island. It's my favorite. You might have a different curry seasoning that you like, but I really like this one. And we're going to do 2 teaspoons of this. Okay, all those seasonings are now in. Let's mix it up. So I want you to see how the seasoning is over the top of the vegetables. And because the vegetables are a little moist, the seasoning easily sticks to them. And that's perfect because it'll be on the roasting pan shortly. Okay, So we are ready now to add our vegetables onto our parchment paper for roasting. I like to roast on the parchment paper because it's nonstick. And so all of those delicious little bits of caramelized vegetables and spices will shoot off that parchment and into our delicious soup. So let's spread it out, and we want to have it pretty much one layer thick. If you have it thicker than that, then the vegetables tend to be more steamed instead of actually roasted. So let's see if we have enough room with the two trays here, the two cookie sheets. And you'll notice that I'm using a cookie sheet that is having no edges on it, and that helps with the circulation in the convection oven, so we get nice roasting on all the edges as well. Okay, and now I'm taking and getting all those little extra bits of spices into this roasting area. So I'm scraping out the inside of the bowl to capture all those last little drizzle of the spices. Okay, so now let's spread it out a little bit, and we'll see if we get to one layer thick or not. Okay, so anywhere where it's got a little room, we want to take advantage of that and spread it out. That looks pretty good on that one. Now let's spread it on this one. And then it's time to roast them in the oven. We have our oven preheating to 400 degrees, and we'll do it at 10 minutes at a time. The reason only 10 minutes is because sometimes little bits of vegetables will be getting in a hot spot or a dark spot, and we don't want anything to burn. We just want that caramelization happening. So we'll go ahead and every 10 minutes pull them out and stir it around just a little bit to even up the caramelization. Okay, let's put it in the oven. Okay, our oven has preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're ready to stick our vegetables in for roasting. I have two trays, so I've separated them out just a little bit in the oven so that there's good circulation around them. And there they go. And then we'll set our timer here for 10 minutes for our first check. Okay, now while the vegetables are roasting, it's time to make our milk. And typically a curry is made with coconut milk. But coconut milk is very high in saturated fat. So I prefer to make my own cashew-based milk. So here we go. We're going to use a half a cup of cashews and place them in your blender with 1 cup of water. And then I'm doing 4 cups of milk, 2 of which are a soy milk and 2 of which are an oat milk. Make sure when you get your oat milk that it doesn't have oil added to it. Some oat milks do. And then also make sure it's not vanilla. You want a plain one, because in this case we are making something that is more savory, and so the vanilla flavor wouldn't work so well. So our 4 cups of milk. And this is going to make a lot of soup. And so I'm going to be having actually 2 Vitamixers going of the soup. But I'll show you how we do that. So let's pop this on the blender, and then we'll blend our cashews in well with our milk until it just turns to a nice, thick, creamy milk that is better for the squash soup, so that it has that nice, almost fatty texture in your mouth from the cashews. Okay, you see I blended it on very high speed for quite a while because we want those cashews blended in absolutely creamy into this milk. Okay, and now it'll be waiting for us to add our vegetables in and blend, and then our soup will be ready. Because we have so many vegetables, I'm going to actually split the milk between the two containers, and we'll blend them both once we get the vegetables out. Okay? Okay, it's been about 10 minutes, and we're going to check in on our vegetables. Open the oven, be careful because it's hot. And I can see that my squash and onions have not browned much yet at all, and that's okay. Just let them stay in there the first time through. Sometimes it takes closer to 20 minutes before you need to stir. So let them continue roasting, and then we'll check in on them again. Okay, friends, now that we've given the vegetables a little extra time for roasting, let's check in and see how they're doing. Be careful with the heat. And yes, now you can see that we've got some nice golden colors developing on the vegetables, and I'm just going to set them up here so I can stir them a little bit. We'll leave the other ones roasting in there. And I did want to say that I forgot to add in my bay leaves, so it's fine. I'll just add them in now. Just add a couple to each one of these trays. Make sure and hold the pan with the tray and the paper with your oven mitt so that you don't burn yourself. And then just begin to stir the vegetables a little bit. So you're mixing up those spots that are getting a little caramel color with the less cooked areas. So I kind of push it first into the middle. And then back out to the sides. And again, you want to make sure and get it all about one layer of vegetables thick. You don't want to have a big pile because then it doesn't roast as well. Okay, so we're getting that all evened up there. And then when I put them back in the oven, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch positions because I have a little bit more heat, I think, coming off that top than I do off the bottom. Okay, so that's ready to go back in. Let's get the other one out. And my other one here is on the top shelf. And I think that had just a little bit more browning than the bottom one. So we'll set that down. And we'll put this one now onto the top shelf. Get it back in there for a little bit more roasting. 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll add our 2 bay leaves to this one. Have our mitt on when we're handling this hot tray. And you don't want to burn yourself. Now, I don't have near as many vegetables on this tray, it seems. So we could probably even it up a little by bringing some of the others over. But I think that there's at least 1 layer thick or so of vegetables. I didn't have to have it like a pile. So I think we're still going to be fine with the roasting of the vegetables. Okay, so mixing them up a little bit, turning them over, getting our bay leaves mixed in, our carrots and onions, and everything is smelling so good as those spices are roasting onto those bits of pumpkin and onion. I can hardly wait to blend it into our soup. Let's get it back in the oven for the next roasting. Setting our timer again for about 15 more minutes. And that's it. Okay, it's been another 15 minutes, a total of about 35 minutes, maybe 40. And let's check in on our vegetables and see how they're looking. Yes, now you can see the carameling is coming up a lot more, and we're getting some good color on our vegetables. Those little bits of caramelization taste so good. All right, we'll set these up here. And then we'll go ahead and get the second tray out and turn off the oven because we're done with the heating of the vegetables here. And this tray also has some beautiful caramel colors. So let's get these parchment papers into the milk and make our beautiful kabocha and butternut squash curried soup. Okay, so to do this, I don't want to burn myself, and so we're going to have to move about half of the vegetables into each one. So I'm going to move just a little bit over onto this one because I think that's going to make it so that it's about half and half. Let's get our first pitcher of milk, and we'll go ahead and scoop in the vegetables a little bit at a time here. Okay, as I'm putting my vegetables in, I saw my bay leaves, and that reminds me that I don't want to add my bay leaves into the actual soup. They're just for kind of roasting and some of their flavor in them. So let's take the bay leaves out now. We had 4 of them, so I kind of count those. And let's see if we can find all 4. There we go. Got all 4 out. Now we can get those bits of vegetables into this. And we might even try, because the parchment paper itself is not hot, so we might try just lifting it up and putting it all into the soup, into the milk. That will go a little bit faster. Now we'll just take a peek and see if there's any good bits that are still on there, because I'll tell you, these caramelization bits, these are the best flavored pieces, so you don't want to miss those, okay? Now let's take our other pitcher. And we'll do the same thing with this one. See if I can be as lucky. Okay, couple extra pieces here. And it's all in, ready for blending. Let's pop it on to the Vitamixer. Make sure and seal your lid on well. So you don't want any splashing out. And then go ahead and start blending. And because the vegetables are hot, it'll make a hot soup. Okay, our soup is blended. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. Want to see how the flavor is developing in this and if it needs any finishing, okay? So just taking a little spoon out and tasting it. So as I'm tasting it, this is where I'm really sensing the curry flavors, but it's a little less sweet than I would like it. So I'm going to add just a little bit of maple syrup to it. Maybe 1 to 2 tablespoons in each pitcher. I'm going to do the same to this one. And if you want to bring up your curry flavor, this would also be another time you can add just a little bit more curry seasoning to the mixture. Maybe another 1/4 teaspoon in each one. And if you want to add spice, this would be also a time where you could add a little bit of heat by putting in some red chili flakes. That'll heat it up. And I'm not going to do that because some members of my family don't like a lot of spice, so I won't use that one. I am going to put in just a little bit of salt though, because I think it's needing just a little salt too. Although I don't like to add a lot of salt because there's been no salt up to this point, I'm going to add just a bit of salt into each one. As you remove salt from your diet, you can do with less and less. And so we have cut the salt back quite a bit in our family, but not completely. Okay, let's pop it on and see how this turns out after this blend. Okay, let's give it another taste. Oh, now that's delicious. Okay, we got our flavor. Let's go ahead and serve it in a bowl. So I've got a little bowl over here, and we'll pour a bowl of the soup. Okay, friends, now we're going to top this soup with a little something special. You might use a cashew sour cream, some chopped cilantro, or some pumpkin seeds. But what I'm showing you today is a red pepper coulis. And I make this red pepper coulis by taking 1 jar of the fire roasted red peppers and rinsing everything off of them. So they're just the red peppers. Placing them in the blender with a little bit of a white balsamic. And this is a very sweet one that I get from High Hand Olive Oil Company in Loomis. And I use this to both have the vinegar in it to preserve it, and a little bit of sweetness enhances it a little. And then if that's not sweet enough, another thing that I use for sweetness is the date sugar. And because in my case, I like a little heat, and this is my way of controlling the heat. I use this cayenne pepper, and I put just a little bit in it. So it's mostly the sweet pepper with just a little heat. And that makes the red pepper coulis. And it looks so beautiful in the top of that golden soup with the red pepper coulis. And then we'll just add a little bit of our red pepper coulis. And it's ready to serve. Okay, I'm presenting the curried kabocha pumpkin and butternut squash soup with a blue cornbread. If you'd like to see the cornbread, leave a comment below so I'll know that you would like to see that recipe in the future. Enjoy. Bon appetit.